Hi friends, we're at the end of chapter 1 and we're at section 1.6 and we're looking at scatter plots. Let's take a look at our vocabulary for today. So our vocabulary term is only one term. Yay! Our vocabulary term is scatter plot, and it's a graph that shows or demonstrates a relationship between two sets of data. We have a few examples here of what they look like. This first one, this top part, by the way, is just the same definition we had before. This first one shows a relationship between days on certain days and the weight taken. I'm assuming this must be maybe lab animals or something because the weight is really low. However, what I want you to observe about this graph is that there seems to be a bit of a trend. It seems as though as one thing increases, so does the other. So as we get higher and higher in days, the weight also seems to be increasing. And what I would like to do is just kind of think about this as if it's going up. This is a positive relationship, and this is what we would call a positive correlation. On the other graph over here, or this scatter plot over here, I don't know if you can see the words, but this is car weight. And as the car weight increases, you can see what's happening. The mileage seems to be going down. So when I have a situation like that, draw an arrow through it because in general that's where the information's going. When I have a situation like that, I would say that that's a negative correlation. Sometimes we could have neither a positive nor a negative correlation, and it really is just looking at the graph. Here we're looking at a graph of somebody who put together, or a scatter plot of somebody who put together the two data points of impulsivity level, and I don't know how it's measured, and empathy level. But if you look at the scatter plot, you can see that there's no real trend. In fact, it seems rather random. And so what I would say here is that there is no correlation. There seems to be no correlation or no discernible relationship between the two bits of data that they've collected together. So let's get started. We're going to make our own scatter plots. Make a scatter plot of the approximate population of Tampa, Florida. So the first thing I've decided is to make my chart. I'm going to put year across the bottom, and generally that's what we do. The first term, the first set of data points, or the first set of values that we have are usually kind of considered X and Y. So I'm going to do the same thing, kind of treat this like the X-axis and the Y-axis. So the years will go across the bottom and the population will go along the side. But you guys see the problem. These are some big numbers. How do I number something like this? And that's really important thing to do. So we can number differently on the X-axis and the Y-axis, and that's fine. I am going to start with 1940, and I can put that here. Or perhaps, since that'll be pretty crowded as I write, I can just put 40. Right? And I'm going to go through and finish labeling that axis. That wasn't too bad. I basically just put down the numbers as they were. They're 10 years apart, so everything fit nicely. Now the population's a little tricky. It's in thousands. I've got all the way up to over 300,000. I think the best bet for me at this point is to probably number the sides in a convenient way. So what I'm going to do is put this down here and make this 100,000. And then put a little mark and make this 200,000. Put a little mark and make this 300,000. And it's necessary for me to put population and then as they have here in thousands. And so I'll add that just now. Okay, perfect. I feel set to graph. So now, or to plot my points. So now I'm going to plot my scatter points. For 1940, the population was just over 100,000. So I'm going to go to 1940 and I'm going to put a dot right there, just over 100,000. In 1950, it was just over 125,000. If this is 100, this is 200. This mark means 150. 125,000 would be between that mark and the 100 mark. So between this one and this one. So again, 1960, we had a spike. We were up to 275. Here's 250. 275 would be between 250 and 300. In 1970, we're at 278. Pretty close. 275 is pretty close to 278. So I'm going to do that. In 1980, we're at 272. There's a slight decline. And I want to show that by going down a little bit. But again, still in the same area. 1990, we're at 280, so slightly above that high point, back in 1970. And then finally in 2000, we're at 300,000. So we're just above there. There's the 300,000, and I'll be right there. So here, I know these points aren't that beautiful. Forgive me. Let's see if I can do better. There we go. Those look nicer. No, they don't. They look the same. Okay, so anyway, this is my scatter plot, and this is fine. What I see is that it looks like, even though there was a little bit of downturn, it looks like the trend is generally upward. I don't know. Let's see. So we've done that. Do we have to describe population of family flora? Yeah, we did good. That's fine. All right, let's look at this next one. Example 2. Interpret the scatter plot. Determine the relationship. Is it positive, negative, or none? Look at it. Tell me. I mean, it looks a little, looks a little like maybe it's going up, but then it's just kind of chaotic too, right? So what they're trying to, they're illustrating a relationship between the mathematical scores on, I'm assuming SATs because these look like SAT scores, and the verbal scores on an SAT. And basically, if the person does well in math, do they necessarily do well in the verbal section? This scatter plot, I kind of want to pretend like it's trending upwards, but it's not. It just looks all over the place. So what kind of a correlation does it have? Let me use a pen to write none. None. All right, so let's analyze this next guy. We see grade point average and hours of playing video games. Okay, so if you play video games a lot, if that's high, your grade point average according to this chart is low. I don't know how true that is, but it sounds logical. Okay, so let's see what we notice. We see as one thing increases, the other thing decreases, and so I think that we can all clearly see that this has a negative correlation. So your answer here would be negative correlation. Do we have another one? Okay, example 3. I think this is our final one. The table shows how many cups of coffee were sold during an outdoor game at certain temperatures. So as we're looking at the temperatures, and we're looking at the relationship, we see that we're relating temperatures and number of cups of coffee. When it's low, we're selling a lot of cups of coffee, and as the temperature increases, it seems like we are selling fewer cups of coffee. So the first thing we're going to do is make a scatter plot of the data. We're going to draw a conclusion about the type of relationship the data shows, and then we're going to predict the number of coffee cups or cups of sold in the temperature if it were 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So you've got 3 different things to do. Let's get started. Okay, so I've put together what I think is a reasonable table. Across the bottom, I decided to take the first term, which I usually refer to as X, or the first set of data information, and the second set of data information. So X I have down here, and the corresponding Y I have over here. Good, so now we're going to make our scatter plot. Notice what I did is I checked out how far up I needed to go, like the highest value, and it looks like the maximum of temperatures was 75. So I just put some hatch marks on my axis, and then I made sure that they fit 75. That unit would be there. And here I did the same thing over here. I know it only goes up to 40, but since it has that little lip there, I was really comfortable by counting by 5s, and I knew that 42 would be accommodated on my graph. So now that I'm ready to go, I'm going to get started. So I see 34 and 42. So 34 would be here, 42 is here. Let me get a nice point so I can make these dots more beautiful. All right, so 34 is just before 35, 42 is just above 40, and that's my point. 36 is just above 35, and we got to 39, which is just underneath 40, so I'm there. At 43, I'm here on this next one. 43 is just above 42, and I get 34, which is just below 35. So you see, I'm going to do this for the rest. Let me go ahead and finish this up. There we go. I think I have them all. I got all the data points there plotted down, and it says draw a conclusion about the type of relationship that the data shows. I don't think that there's any question that this is showing a wonderful negative correlation. So we've got a negative correlation there. I'm just going to use the arrow to indicate that at this time. Well, let me write it out because I want you to write it out, so I should write it out. So there's a negative correlation. All right, 2 R's, 1 L. I got it. All right, sort of. We'll fix that. Okay, that's better. So now that we've recognized, we've done the chart, we've figured out the relationship is negative, now we're going to predict the number of cups of coffee that would be sold in a 30 degree Fahrenheit weather, right? So what we're thinking about here is, let me adjust that a little bit, is what we're thinking about is kind of trending back. We see the increase that's happening, or the decrease that's happening. If I look back this way, it looks like I'm just going to draw a line through the data. It looks like at 30 degrees, so here's 28, 30 would be here. What would that be? How many cups of coffee can we predict just given our situation? So we've got 40. This would be 45. Here would be 50 if I were to extend. It looks like it would be somewhere between 45 and 50, and I think that to guess 47 would not be bad given the graph. And so that's often the way. So I'm going to say 47 cups, and I think that's a pretty good guess. That's often the way information is used. When you collect data and you're looking for a trend, you're also looking for that trend to make a prediction on other pieces of information that you may not have or other pieces of the data that you might not have access to. All right, so with that, we have come to the end of our lesson, the end of chapter 1. I want you guys to really be mindful of the fact that you're going to need to take a test soon. I would say within a couple days of finishing the chapter. Get your study on, make sure you do the practice test, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. You'll let me know if you have any questions. Take care. Bye-bye.